Welcome back. I'm Wes Wood, the Income Guy, and today we're asking the question, are you playing retirement roulette, poker, or chess? So far we covered the riskiest game of retirement roulette. Now let's ante up for a little bit of poker. We all know that one poker player who can bluff their way to winning the pot, seems like game after game after game. They're a good player, and there's definitely some elements of skill and strategy involved when it comes to poker, like patience and discipline and the ability for someone to read cards and your opponents. In short, you've got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. Many would even argue that poker is more of a game of skill than it is in chance. But the fact is, chance does play a major role, because every time that deck is shuffled and the cards are dealt, you have no control what hand you end up with. Sure, it could be a full house, but you could also end up with no hand at all. And how does this equate to investing? How might you be playing retirement poker? Well, you're playing retirement poker if you're trusting a plan that gives you far less control than you think it does. Let's say, for instance, you're 5 years away from retirement, and your plan goes a little something like this. You have all your savings in stocks and stock mutual funds, and you're going to keep investing for that 8% growth for the next 5 years. Then, as soon as you retire, you're going to change your investment strategy to invest for 4% income. If that sounds familiar, that's because I've used that analogy once before. But it's a perfect example of someone unknowingly playing retirement poker. Why? Because your so-called strategy requires you to bet on the big unknown, just like you do every time you ante up or raise at the poker table. The unknown, of course, is whether or not you're going to get that 8% growth. That's like spinning the roulette wheel or reshuffling that card game and not too sure what kind of hand you're going to get. You might get your 8%, but it's still a gamble. Anytime you invest for growth in the stock market, you're ultimately just betting on probability. That's what makes it much more of a gamble than it is a strategy, even when you think you're being strategic. I know what you're saying. You're saying, okay, Wes, I hear what you're saying, but what about all those champion poker players out there? And what about those big investors like Warren Buffett who never seem to miss? Well, I'm glad you thought that, and I'm glad you asked. High stakes poker is a lot different from your Tuesday night game with the boys. But by the same token, the same kind of investing Warren Buffett does is a lot different than the kind of investing that we would do. When Warren Buffett invests in a company, he typically buys a controlling share. That gives him a level of control over the company's fate. When you or I invest, we're usually buying a minority interest, which does not give us that type of control. We're putting our money into the companies in a mere hope that it succeeds. Think of it like FanDuel, the popular betting website. If you place a bet in FanDuel and you bet on the, let's say, Tennessee Titans to win, you and our coach, Mike Vrabel, now have something in common. We both want the Titans to win. But Mike Vrabel has some control over what happens in this situation, who wins the game, where you don't. You might say he's truly invested in the team while you're just betting on the team. No financial strategy gives you complete control, and no investment is 100% risk-free. But a more truly strategic, the way you can be with your investments within 10 years of retirement, the better you're going to be in the long run. And that's where retirement chess comes in. Now, we can help you create a retirement chess plan at Wood Financial Group. Reach out to me directly at retiretv.com or by calling 855-776-0614. Now, let's welcome back Investing for Income Specialist, David Scranton. Welcome back, Dave.
Thanks. Well, you know, it's interesting because I could almost hear your viewers right through the television set thinking, okay, Wes, I get it. I don't have control when I invest in the stock market. But over the long run, the stock market still goes up, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it does, but remember what I mentioned before the break there. We have these time periods where the market can stay flat and does stay flat for many years in the road, many years down the line. You know, a lot of analysts say, well, the market only corrects and stays corrected for a couple of years, and that's kind of true, but in essence, the market actually can stay flat for many years, and that's what's called the secular bear market. Not cyclical, secular. And if somebody's close to or in retirement and happens to go through, let's just say, 2000, 2013, when the market was essentially flat with two major crashes, and that's happened many times in stock market history, that's when problems can happen.
Well, like what, 2000 and 2013, right? Just at the beginning of the century, and most of your viewers remember that period, 13 years underwater. That's a long time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just like go back to 1966 to 82.
Yeah.
The Dow Jones hit 1,000 one day on 1966, and then the Dow Jones in 1982 hit 1,000 as well. That's a long-term secular bear market that can really upset retirees.
Yeah, you know, so it's interesting. I've heard you say before, and I think it's worth taking a minute, if you don't mind, to explain to your audience. Before, when I've heard you talking about how, as average investors who aren't Warren Buffett, who don't own a controlling interest, how essentially we're overpaying for shares of stock every day of our lives.
Yeah, well, when Warren Buffett buys a controlling interest of a company, you think that maybe he's paying 50 to 100% above market value, but we all know that's not true. Probably paying more like 10 to 15, maybe upwards of 20% when he buys control of the company. But again, he's a lot like that head coach of the football team, where now he has control of the company and he's got a much more likely outcome. Whereas us, as minority investors, we're just simply betting on the team, just hoping that this stock or this company does well. So what ends up happening is we end up definitely paying a lot more for the shares. And when the market gets kind of bad or wild, and guess who's going to be holding the bag? Do you think it's going to be the big Wall Street firms, or to listeners just on the other side of this television screen who's following us right now?
So you don't think that Warren Buffett is negotiating such a great deal with market participants that he's underpaying? You think the reality is that minority investors essentially, and I say minority investors, I mean those who don't have controlling interest, are essentially overpaying every day?
That's exactly right, Dave. Yep.
Yeah. And you're not anti-stock. You're just, for people 50 and over, anti-growth. You could be in the stock market providing your income first and growth second in terms of your philosophy, correct?
That's exactly right. Taking that stance, that priority of income first and then growth second. But by doing that, it limits the risk, but then we know that the income is more certain and we can count on it. Where somebody that is younger, yes, they can probably take more in growth and buy the Apples and Amazons of the world. But if somebody gets within that 10 years or so retirement, they really need to make that shift from growth to income, and still can do it with some money in the stock market, just use more dividend-based strategies. But thanks again, Dave. And coming back after the break, we're going to set up the board for a game of retirement chess. I'm Wes Wood, and you're watching the Retirement Income Show. We'll be right back.
A fiduciary is someone legally obligated to act in your best interest. Doctors, lawyers, and some financial advisors are fiduciaries, but not all. When you work with Wes Wood and his team at Wood Financial Group, you are working with fiduciaries. They help clients create customized investment portfolios based off their retirement goals. If you're ready to work with a fiduciary, visit retiretv.com and schedule a free, no-obligation conversation with Wes or a Wood Financial Group advisor.